I always keep these on hand for quick and easy meals, and they're not run-of-the-mill meals in jars. They're very clever to have in your pantry for breads, breakfast, salads, main dishes, sides, and even dessert. So let's get started. Hi sweet friends, I'm Mary and welcome to Mary's Nest, where I teach traditional cooking skills for making nutrient-dense foods like bone broth, ferments, sourdough, and more. So if you enjoy learning how to be a modern pioneer in the kitchen, consider subscribing to my channel and don't forget to click on the little notification bell below. That'll let you know every time I upload a new video. Now, the first thing I want to mention is that you can always check the description underneath this video as well as the pinned comment, where I'll list timestamps for everything I'm going to cover so you can jump ahead whenever you want. And I think some people call timestamps chapters, and that's exactly what they are. Now, I've been having fun in my kitchen with a lot of projects, and if you saw my video last week, you know that one of my projects has been dehydrating. Now, I received some excellent questions in the comment section, and I want to cover the most important one here. A number of you asked, well, doesn't dehydrating decrease the nutrients in the food that you're drying? And the answer to that question actually has sort of two parts. On the one hand, yes, whenever you expose vegetables, specifically last week I was dehydrating a lot of vegetables, whenever you expose vegetables to heat, yes, there may be some decrease in the nutrients, whether you're dehydrating them, whether you're boiling them, whether you're roasting them, whatever the case may be. However, sometimes with other vegetables, heating them actually improves their nutrition and allows us to better absorb the vitamins that they offer. This is often seen with tomatoes, that cooked tomatoes are often better for us than raw tomatoes. So it's sort of a mixed bag of answers. Now, I'm going to have a lot more information about this, about nutrients, which ones may be decreased, which ones may be increased, and so on and so forth in the blog post that corresponds with this video. And I'll be sure to link to that below in the description as well as the pinned comments. But having some dried vegetables as well as herbs and spices and also dried fruits in your pantry can be very helpful when it comes to wanting to make quick and easy meals. Now, I have a lot of videos on dehydrating a whole host of things, and sometimes you need a dehydrator, but many things can be done in the oven, so that's good news. And I'll be sure to link to the playlist that has all of my dehydrating videos put together for you. It includes how to make tomato powder from tomato skins and various tomato scraps, how to make dehydrated bone broth, this is wonderful to have on hand, and how to dehydrate a host of other things, including herbs and spices, as well as vegetables and fruits. So the nice thing about having some dehydrated supplies on hand, as well as other things that you have in your pantry. I've got sucanat here, and I've also got some sort of what I call an old world flour. This is ground from whole grain, and then some of the bran and germ, but not all of the bran and germ is sifted out. So it's a little healthier than just your all-purpose or your bread flour, or what some of you may know as just plain flour. Now, putting all these things together, we can make a whole host of mixes and meals in a jar. Now, speaking of mixes in a jar, I have another playlist for you where I show you how to make a whole host of mixes. We're just going to talk about some basic things today, but the playlist that I have covers mixes, oh gosh, for almost everything that you could think of. All types of baked goods, cake mixes, cookie mixes, the whole host of things. And I'll be sure to link to that for you. Now, two mixes I really like to always have in my pantry so that I can throw something together very quickly is an oatmeal bread mix and a cracker mix. Now, we're going to go over making the oatmeal bread mix, but I'll have the cracker mix over on my website. Now, when it comes to these mixes in a jar, my prerequisite, so to speak, is that the ingredients are pretty much all in this jar. That when I get ready to bake this oatmeal bread, I don't have to add a whole bunch of other stuff. Maybe some water or maybe some oil, and that's it. Now the first thing we're going to need is a quart-sized jar, and a funnel really helps if you have one. It just makes the job a little neater. We're going to go ahead and put in 1.5 cups of our flour. If you want to use all-purpose flour, you certainly can. This just has a little more nutrition to it. We're just going to go ahead and get that in. And then we're going to take 1/2 cup of our sweetener. And I'm using Sucanat, and that's all that is dried sugar cane juice, and it's still got all the minerals in it. These can look very pretty too, if you can get them in nice and evenly. Then next, you're going to want to put in a teaspoon of baking soda and a teaspoon of baking powder. And then on top of that, you're going to go ahead and add a teaspoon of cinnamon. Now, you can play around with this and you can add different spices, but I really like cinnamon in this. And just to all of that, you're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And I'm just using a fine ground sea salt. Then we're going to add our oats, and I actually keep them. I've got them in a plastic bag in here, and this is just an old-fashioned tin that I have. And I'm going to measure out 1 cup of oats. And these are just your old-fashioned rolled oats. Then finally, I'm going to top all this off with a mixture of whatever nuts and seeds and dried fruit I have on hand. And then that's it. Now this is ready to go right into my pantry. Now I'm familiar with this, but if you're not familiar with this, what you can do is print out the recipe over on my website and then just tie it to the jar, and then you'll have everything that you need when you're ready to go ahead and make this oatmeal bread. And basically all you're going to need are some eggs and a splash of milk or oil, and you'll be good to go. And what's so great about this oatmeal bread is that it makes a great breakfast, it makes a great dessert, a great snack. It's really an all-purpose or multi-purpose bread. And if you like things like muesli, they're made in a very similar way. You would just be leaving out the flour and instead maybe putting in some dried milk powder. So there's a lot of variations on making these mixes or meals in a jar. And as I said, I'll share this over on my website, but I at least wanted to show you how to do this bread, and the recipe will be over there. Next, I want to share with you the easiest way to throw together a really delicious side dish that all that it requires is for you to add water to it. This is a rice dish that has so much flexibility to it because you can make it very simple, almost like a little bit of a pilaf, or you can use some of your dehydrated tomato powder to make it more of like a Mexican or a Spanish rice, which I think would be wonderful. And this was a blend at which I think I'm going to save this and work these two together because this was a Mexican blend of vegetables that were frozen from my grocery store. If you saw that dehydrating video, and they're wonderful because they've got little bits of broccoli and cauliflower. I think it's just going to make the cutest sort of unusual style, Mexican or Spanish rice. But they also had frozen vegetables, frozen soup vegetables. So you have a lot of flexibility for what you can go and then mix in with your rice. You could even throw in some nuts into here, or some seeds, or some dried fruit. I like to do that also. So there's so many things you can do. And basically what I always start with is just a base of some, let's see if I can get this in here, about 1/4 cup of dehydrated bone broth. And then I'll just go ahead and, as I said, I have videos where I show you how to do this with chicken bone broth as well as beef bone broth. I'm just going to go ahead and drop that down into the bottom of my jar. And then I think what I'll do is use these, I think maybe the soup vegetables will work really nice, just to kind of make a very simple pilaf. But as I said, experiment with this because there's so much that you can do. So what I'm going to, this is a 1/2 cup measure, but I'm going to go ahead and add in about 1 cup. Let's see. Yeah, about 1 cup. This would probably serve 4 because I'm going to add in 1 cup of rice. So in goes the other 1/2 cup to put a full cup of veggies in there. And then, I still need my funnel, otherwise I'll make a mess. And then I'm going to go ahead and put my rice in. just shake it to kind of get everything to compact. Now my dehydrated bone broth, this is chicken bone broth, and it's made from roast chicken bones. So there's some seasonings kind of already in there, a little bit of salt and whatnot. So I'm not going to add any salt on top of here. But when I make beef bone broth, those bones have been roasted just plain, not from a roast chicken, obviously. And so there's no salt in that. So if I was using beef bone broth, I would probably just sprinkle about a half a teaspoon of salt on top of the rice. But that's it. And now, when you're ready to go and make this side dish, all you do is bring your water up to a boil. You're going to bring about 3 cups of water up to a boil. You're going to dump this in, bring it back up to a boil, and then let it simmer until the rice and the veggies are rehydrated and the rice is cooked. And I just wanted to mention, this is a pint-sized jar. So we used a quart size for the oatmeal bread, and we used a pint size for the rice side dish. Next, I want to show you how to put a quick pasta dinner in a quart-sized jar. And all you're going to want to do now, I've got the tomato powder, so I'm going to make this a tomato-based pasta dish. But say you didn't have the dried tomato powder. Don't worry about it. You can make this, in essence, a blonde pasta dish, like a pasta primavera, when you have different frozen vegetables that you've taken and dehydrated. You can go ahead and put your pasta in the jar with your dehydrated vegetables, maybe a little bit if you've got some dehydrated bone broth, whatever the case may be. And then you're going to do it, if you've ever seen that video where Martha Stewart kind of just put spaghetti and a bunch of vegetables in a frying pan with some water. That's basically how you're going to cook this. It's a very easy recipe. You're going to dump the jar of whatever pasta you've decided to combine with whatever vegetables you've decided to combine it with. You're going to dump that into your frying pan, add about 4 cups of water, bring it up to a boil, let it cook. The pasta will cook, the veggies will rehydrate, and you'll also have like a nice little bit of sauce. Now what I'm going to do is just measure out approximately a 1/4 cup of this tomato powder. Again, you know, none of this is really a completely exact science, so don't worry too much about it. But I'm going to go ahead and put that in the bottom of my jar. And then what I'm going to do is take this mixture that I made that's like a tomato sauce mixture but dehydrated. And what I've done is just mix a bunch of dried herbs together. You know, I have a recipe where I show you how to make your own homemade Italian seasoning mix. That's exactly what this is, at least as the base. And then to that, I just added a bunch of other things. I added some dehydrated onions, a few little bits of dehydrated sweet red bell peppers, just a mixture of things, nothing fancy. Oops, and you can definitely use a little flexibility or in making this mix, whatever you like. You know, you could put some dehydrated carrots in here, whatever you like to put into your tomato sauce. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure out probably, this is just a 1/4 cup measure, and I'm probably going to put just a 1/2 cup down on the bottom of my jar. Then I'm just going to put in a teaspoon of salt. You could certainly leave that out if you want and just add it after the fact. Now what I've got here is a bag of rigatoni, and this is a great pasta for using in a meal in a jar type pasta mixture, because it's a nice hearty pasta, and so it holds up very well to the particular cooking method that we'll be using, where we just kind of throw everything into a frying pan with some water. And I'm just going to go ahead and add in as much pasta as I can fit into the jar. And then I'll save the rest to cook later, or just maybe to make another meal in a jar. And then that's it. Now I'll just add my water to the frying pan, throw this in, and you could add a little olive oil if you wanted. It's not required. And then after the water is somewhat absorbed, you're just going to serve this up and maybe top it with a little grated cheese. And it's just so darn easy. You don't have to worry about opening any cans, tomatoes, or cutting up fresh tomatoes. I love this. And this recipe will be over on my website. You don't need to write any of this down. It'll all be over there. Now I want to share a tip with you. If you live in a particularly humid climate, and you may already know this if you've been dehydrating vegetables, you can always pop a silica gel pack into any of your containers with dehydrated veggies or fruits, whatever the case may be. And you can also pop them into your meals in jars. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, if you want to learn more about dehydrating and making different types of mixes and meals in jars, be sure to click on this playlist over here where I have a whole host of things. And I look forward to seeing you over there in my Texas Hill Country Kitchen. Love and God bless.